it's not the case that I will introduce to index and to HTML and CSS in the sense that having a lot of slides of CSS and a lot of slides of HTML. I just assume that you will be capable of doing that yourself, or have at least, because it's not that difficult. It's not HTML is. It's not to say that HTML is simple as many things, but there's only tags, and that's the only thing that tags and attributes, and then so it's not that complicated. Of course, to find out all the possible tags, tags is easy but all the possible attributes you can use to the different tags and so on. Of course, it needs you to go to Google, but it doesn't matter. It will not help you that I have a slide here that tells you about that, because you wouldn't remember it anyway. So you have to Google it. So I assume that you can do that. The same for CSS. CSS is the styling part. I'm not saying that HTML and CSS together is easy. I'm not saying that it's easy to make a pretty homepage. That's not easy. It's like everybody can learn to play the piano, or everybody can learn to paint, but that's not the same that you become Mozart or Picasso or something like that. That's the same with the HTML and CSS. We can learn it, everybody can learn it, but only few of us will be good at designing pages that makes a difference. I'm one of them. Not one of the few, one of the big gray area over here that knows about HTML and CSS, but have never done anything anybody would love to look at. So, but I think that's pretty much where most of us will be. Especially, I think that's one of the labels you can put on most programmers, because they're more focused on the functionality and then all this part of colors and fonts and. But of course it could be different for you. I'm just actually saying something about myself right now. But I've seen a lot of computer science students, and I know that a lot of them have the same issue. So it's, of course you can see it's nice, but sitting there and using hours and hours trying to trigger the color and the font size and the font face and somebody loved that, and you can feel now we are getting closer. I don't feel anything when I'm looking at the font. I'm only reading what it tells me. so that's a long. So I'm not saying that it's easy in that sense, because that's not the case. It's very difficult, and there's a shitload of bad pages out there. That's why next time we'll look at the Bootstrap to see why for every programmer in that big group over here, and not that the chosen few ones over here, for that big group, frameworks like Bootstrap is so nice, because instead of what you saw and was capable of making as a programmer, it's very, very bad, very bad pages. Now you can make decent pages that of course look pretty much like everybody else's, but that's the same, because if you looked at the computer scientist homepages, they pretty much also look the same. They were awful, very, very bad. But now they have some, so that's nice. So that's I think that's one of the best tools that is ever invented in the front end. That's the Bootstrap and similar tools, because you can actually do something that looks nice. So we talked about knockout last time. We'll try to do some more knockout today. Try to get a page up and running and switching content on the page and everything. That will be the idea for today, and then adding some CSS features into the application. So when we talked about it last time, we talked about these bindings. We talked about observables. We talked about the observer pattern, and we also talked about templates. So we had this idea that we could change the content of the page. We could define different templates, and then we could switch them in and out on the page dynamically on behalf of the user interaction. So that's the definition of a single page application, that the interaction from the user will change the content of the page. So you will not reload the page from the server, so you will not ask for a new page, but you will just change the content. So we talked about these concepts here. The dependency tracking. So that's the dependencies between whenever you in the HTML do a binding to something in the view model. There's a dependency between these two. So we can track these, track these dependencies, and then notify if something is changed. If somebody have a dependency on some part of the view model, it will notify that part of the view to re-render itself. So that's the idea. And we have these declarative bindings, so we don't have to use JavaScript inside the HTML. We would just have an attribute on the tag, and then we have some specific commands we can set up to do the bindings between the HTML and the view model. And then the templating. So that was for each was also an example we didn't use, but we saw that there was we could do some if and if not and with and so on. So different examples of that. So HTML. What is HTML? It's a markup language. So it's not a programming language. Of course, it depends on the definition of a programming language, but most people, depends on where from the point of view. But in computer science, I think most people have this idea that the definition of a programming language is something that can do an infinite loop. So in order to be a programming language, you need to be able to do an infinite loop. Then you can program, and you cannot do an infinite loop in the HTML. You have to look a lot, because it's a markup language. So you're not programming HTML. I know that many people talk about in that sense. So say, yeah, I've just programmed some HTML. No, you haven't. You have marked up something, but don't say anything. Just
be nice.
So when some of these non-pro programmers talk about that they have programmed HTML, just say nothing. Yeah. Don't go out that road, because it doesn't give you any good things. Starting to lecture them about what is a programming language, or they don't care, first of all, and second, there's only one loser, and that's you in the end. So don't go there. I've been there. Can you hear that? Yeah, that's not programming. But what is the purpose? That's fine. So we make some markups. So we have these tags, and we can associate part of the text with different tags, and then the browser can look at these tags and then render the page differently for the different tags. That's the idea. So you have a predefined set of elements that you can use. So HTML. If you look at the similarities and differences between XML and HTML, then HTML is a subset of XML, where you have a defined number of a finite number of tags. So in XML you can create all the tags you like, but in HTML you only have a limited number of tags. That makes sense, because all the tags have some information about how to be rendered. So the browser cannot know an infinite number of tags. It needs to have a finite number of tags. So that's the reason. Yeah, you probably know this. So that's an opening tag. That's a closing tag. That's the naming. Then you have attributes. And you can have a number of attributes in your tag, and you can actually make there's an infinite number of possible attributes that you can add to a tag, meaning that only some of them will be recognized by the browser, but the browser have the policy that if it sees an attribute it doesn't know, it will just ignore it. So it will not be a mistake. So that's why we got this mistake last time when I was showing. I forgot the D in bind, and then everything was no mistakes, but data bin without the D was not recognized by Knockout because it was looking for data bind, and HTML was didn't care because it didn't know any of them anyway, so it didn't do anything about it. So yeah. Blah blah blah. Tags, attributes. If you have any questions, or if I'm jumping too fast, then just ask questions. But I assume that this is something that you know already. So you can use named character references. So that means, of course, these are not allowed inside HTML because they have specific meanings. But so if you want to do a greater than sign, you have to use this one here, and the same with this one because that's the framing of the text. So otherwise the parser will get confused if you could use them because they have a specific meaning in the HTML. The same with ampersand and the double quote. You can use comment here. So that's the comment. That's an annoying comment you have to put in there. But most of the environments nowadays you can do the same as you can do in C# or Java or whatever. So you have some commands that can comment out something for you and then comment it in again. So you can remove them because it's very annoying to especially to remove these ones because you have to go to both ends of this. Remember to remove this sequence here and this sequence here. But anyway, yeah, you can say something about the document type. So this means that if you have this in the beginning of your HTML, means that this is HTML5, and HTML5 is the latest version of HTML. And that's not new because it's been around for a couple of years now, but it's the newest HTML version. This is a complete HTML document. So we have the doc type up here, saying that this is an HTML5 document. So you're saying that to the browser. And you can also say that this is a version 4.01 or whatever. And then you have the HTML tag. That's the rule of the document. So an HTML document is a hierarchy, and then you have some meta information in the head, and then you have the body. That's what actually being rendered to the user. So everything here is not something that can be seen by the user. It can have influence on how it looks like because you can put and you will put your CSS references there, and of course that will change the rendering. But this title is not the title of the document that you can see inside the document. That will be what you can see on the tab in your browser. So that will be the name on the tab. Yeah. So any questions to HTML? That was HTML in three slides or something like that. I'm also doing something on communication. I use a complete day on HTML there because they don't know anything about it. But I assume that you can take it from here. So now I actually take this silence as a yes. Okay. Otherwise, ask. Styling. So in the beginning, when back in the 93 or something like that, 92, I don't know when it was actually, was like there, then the web was started. Then everything was just tags, and then you also had tags that related to the rendering. So you had tags that said something about the font, and you had the font tag. You have the tags that say something about the boldness of Also, you can have bold tag, and you can have italic tag, and you can have the color tags, and that was part of the font tag, and so on. So you actually had stuff that changed the rendering inside the HTML. But the problem was that if you wanted something to be read, you had to add some tags around that specific text, and that will be a font begin, and then with an attribute color, and then the name of the color, and then a font end. So if you want to, mark some words on the page, you had to, a lot of tags going on. It was very difficult, and if you have a lot of pages, and then you suddenly decide that now all the marking should not be red but green instead, because either you have to do a regular expression placement, or you have to go in manually, and that was a mess. So you want to divide the styling from the structure of the document. So CSS came around. I think it was, I don't know, I'm not sure. In the beginning of this millennium, I can't remember. But anyway, so there's the idea of having the styling as a separate part from the structure. But that was the idea. So CSS came around, and CSS by itself is also simple. It's not simple to do CSS. Not even if you go to the part we talked about before. But CSS can be complicated. I'll show you some examples in a moment. Very, very complicated. But that's only if you want to make the stars and stripes in CSS, for instance, or something like that. But it can be complicated. But for most parts, it's not. It's easy. So something like this. So this will say that all the paragraphs in my document, all the paragraphs that are related to this style here, will use this font family, and it will use this size. So that's an easy way. You can have that in another file. You can put your CSS in 3 different locations, or you can have it as a file that you include into your HTML. That's the most common way to do that, because that means you can reuse the CSS. So if you do some style, you can reuse that on all the pages. And if you change the style, all the pages will. So the example from before, if you want to change from red to green, you have one place to change it. So that's one. You can also have it embedded inside the HTML document. So you can have a style tag in the header, in the head of the HTML document, where you can have some styling that are only part of that specific document. And then you can have inline styles, so you can style the tags. So one attribute you can add to all tags are style, and then that's what you assign to that style tag will be the CSS styling. So there'll just be a list of CSS commands equal some value, semicolon, and then a new one, semicolon, and a new one. So you can have as many as you want. But of course, the closer you get to the text, then the more you get back to the problem that we talked about before. Because if you have tags styling on the tags, then you have to go into all these tags and change them if you want to change them. But if you have on one page, you want to do something differently on this one single tag, then it's fine. But I will not recommend doing anything like that. So never add styling on your tags. Only for showing an example or something like that. If you in real life, don't do that. Use a class definition and then add the class, because then you have it separated. So you don't want to do styling on the tags. Yeah. So do you know what the cascading means?
Yes.
Okay. So what does it mean? What does cascading mean? What is cascading style sheets? Do you know what that means?
You're cascading something, it's like you're covering something over. This is how you cascade it.
Yeah, so what does cascading means in the style sheet here? What do you know it? So it's called CSS because it's cascading style sheet. So what is that? Yeah.
The description of the presentation.
Yeah, but what is the cascading part?
Describing, I don't know, the elements.
Yeah, but that's the styling. Yeah. So cascading is something else.
Cascading itself is like you're covering something.
Yeah, you're covering something, but
over something. Like
yes.
How is the cascading?
Yeah, so but how does that? What does that mean in CSS? So why do we need cascading? Why do we need it to be cascading? Have this property of being cascading? Do we have an idea about that?
Can I just give an example?
Yeah.
Let's say we have two style sheets.
Yeah.
You know, and in one style sheet, let's say this paragraph, we change it to red.
Yeah.
You know, the color.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, also we want to have it green.
Yeah.
Right. So if we put the style sheet in the top here, you know, it's and then we have the one is here, the one is down. The one is down is what do you call, covering the ones up.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So this is the cascading.
Yeah, that's the cascading.
Yes.
So did you get that?
Overriding.
Yeah, it's actually
kind of overriding. Yes.
So it means that when the browser start looking at the page, it will start to. First of all, the browser have some default styling. So that's a default styling on all the tags. So it knows how to. So if you don't put any styling on the tags, it knows how to present them for you. So that's the default styling. If you add some styling by adding a file, then if that styling will override the default styling. And if you add a style into a specific file, so you have a styling file, but you add some styling on a specific HTML in the header or on the tag, that style will actually override. So you can have that, say that first the paragraph needs to have black color, and then you have a definition that it should be red, and then that it should be green, and then it should be orange, and then then the last one wins. Yeah.
Unless you tell it not to be, or unless you tell it to prioritize some particular one.
Yeah. So you can do the important.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can do.
Yeah.
You say that this is important, and then you drop out of this cascading. But the common thing is that you wanted to use the last definition of. So if you in your style file say paragraph color green, paragraph color black, paragraph color red, that's completely okay. You'll just use the last one. And I will talk a little bit about more because you use something about the most specific one also. So yeah.
I know it's important to prioritize the order, but sometimes, particular when you use Bootstrap and you want a particular color for this particular element, sometimes Bootstrap has the courtesy to override all the time. So you have to put important there, or you have to go inside Bootstrap in its CSS file and change it.
No, you don't need to do that. You can just add the style sheet after Bootstrap.
Yours.
Yeah, I know. But not always. I had some problem. I was going with the order one when I played with Bootstrap and
but no, Bootstrap is not using important. So if you add your style.
No. But there's still complexity. I can explain
okay.
The rationale.
But it's but of course you have to be aware the order matters. That's the point here. So if you when you assign the style sheets to your document, so you have that in your head and you have Bootstrap and then you have your own. That will be the common way to do that because you have Bootstrap. That will be your new default styling, changing the default styling of the browser, and then if you want to change that, you have to put your style after that. If you put it before, then it will be there for the seconds it takes to load Bootstrap into the play. If they have if there's any similarities between the two. So that's the idea of being cascading. So this is what we talked about. We'll just see. I don't know if I have that available. Another important part of styling is the unit you're using when you are defining something. So there's a huge number of different units that you can use, but there's not a huge number of units in use. That's two different things. So you have all this. Most of that is some legacy kind of thing. So these three guys here, they are only used if you want to lay out the page for printing. Doesn't make sense otherwise. Doesn't make sense to talk about a fixed measure like millimeters or something like that, because it will be completely different on different screens depending on the resolution. So it's not. But if you're printing, so if you want to lay out for printing, that makes sense, because then you have a fixed size on the paper. Then 1 millimeter makes sense, but on the screen it doesn't. So never use these guys here. If you just want to talk about the size of something, so you want, then the pixel is the one that is used the most. You will see that. You can also use points and peak hair, but it's the most common one is to use pixels. So you say that this one should be 50 pixel or something like that, and then it will lay out similarly on different resolutions. But that's the one that is used. If you want to do something that is responsive, that means that it can change its size depending on stuff, then you want to use percentages or the EM. So and you will see that more and more are using EM instead of percentage, because EM is looking at the font size. And so if the font size is changing, for instance, if you zoom on the screen, then you change the size of the font. What you want is also the content of the page to change along with that. So if you talk about the size of a box on the screen in the sense of EM, then that box will actually. So if you have a box that is some pixels and you zoom, then the box will keep on being. They will not follow the same pattern as the font will do. So it will become messy. But if you have the size on EM, it will follow the font size. So if the font is increased, then the box will be increased. So the font. So 1 EM is equal to the font size. 2 EM is double of the font size. So that's so if the font size is say 12 pixel, then 1 EM will be 12 pixel, and 2 EM will be 24 pixels, and a half EM will be 6 pixels, and so on and so on. So you talk about the layout on your page in relation to the size of the font. That's very common to do that. There's also an REM, so that's the rule. So that's the default font size on your system. So if you change the font size, you will also change everything else.
Isn't it 16 pixels in default?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the default. Yeah. So that was units. Selectors. We talked a little bit about it when we talked about jQuery. What's the time? Oh, you need a break?